Walk into any room and watch what happens. The loudest person speaks first. They fill every silence before it has a chance to exist. They need to be noticed, agreed with, remembered. And, in the corner, there is someone else. They say less. They move slower. They observe before they speak. And somehow, without doing anything at all, that person seems to take up more space in the room than anyone else. This is not an accident. This is not charisma in the way most people define it. This is something the Stoics understood. Long before the word charisma existed, the quieter a person becomes, the more powerful their presence grows. Today we explore why silence carries more weight than noise ever could. Why the loudest people in any room are often the ones with the least actual influence. And how you can begin building a presence that does not need to announce itself, to be felt by everyone around you. Stay with me until the end, because once you understand this, you will never walk into a room the same way again. There is a strange thing that happens in groups of people without anyone saying it out loud. Everyone in the room develops a sense of who holds weight and who does not. It is not always the person with the loudest voice. It is not always the person with the most to say. Sometimes, it is the person who has said almost nothing at all. You have felt this before. A meeting where one person dominates the conversation, filling every pause, repeating their points, making sure everyone knows what they think. And then there is someone else in the room. They have said 2 sentences the entire time, but when they finally speak, the room shifts. People lean in slightly. The energy changes. What happened there? The Stoics would say that person had been doing something. The entire time they were silent, they had been observing, while others were busy performing, defending, explaining, filling space. This person was watching, listening, understanding the room, before deciding whether anything they could say would add value to it. And when they finally spoke, their words carried the weight of everything they had taken in during the silence. This is the first thing to understand about quiet presence. It is not the absence of thought. It is the accumulation of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we have the power to hold no opinion about a thing, and to not let it disturb our minds. Most people interpret silence as having nothing to offer. The Stoics understood it as choosing the moment, when offering something will actually matter. Why loud people drain their own power? There is a kind of person who needs to be heard constantly. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to demonstrate intelligence, wit, knowledge, or status. They cannot let a silence sit for more than a few seconds. Without filling it, they interrupt, not always out of rudeness, but out of an internal pressure that says, if I am not speaking, I am not being noticed. And if I am not being noticed, I do not exist in this room. This need is exhausting, both for the person carrying it and for everyone around them. But here is what most people do not realize. Every time someone speaks purely to be noticed, they spend something. They spend a small amount of their influence, because the room begins to learn a pattern. This person speaks often. This person speaks regardless of whether they have something valuable to add. This person needs the room's attention more than the room needs their words. And slowly, Without any single dramatic moment, their words begin to carry less weight. Not because they became less intelligent, not because their ideas became worse, but because abundance always reduces value. The Stoics observed this constantly. In Roman politics and society, the men who spoke at every opportunity, who needed to be seen agreeing or disagreeing with everything, who could not tolerate being overlooked, even for a moment. These men were rarely the ones whose opinions were sought out in private, whose counsel was requested when something truly mattered. Seneca wrote about the difference between a person who speaks because they have something to say, and a person who speaks because they cannot bear silence. The first person's words are rare and therefore valuable. The second person's words become background noise, present so constantly that the mind learns to filter them out, the way it filters out traffic sounds outside a window. This is the hidden cost of needing to be loud. Every word spoken without necessity slightly reduces the weight of the next word, until eventually, even important words land with the same weightlessness as everything that came before them. The discipline of the unspoken response. Someone says something you disagree with. The urge to respond immediately is almost physical. You feel the words forming before you have even decided whether they need to be said. This is one of the most common moments where presence is built or destroyed. Most people respond instantly, not because the response is necessary, but because the silence after disagreement feels uncomfortable. It feels like agreement. It feels like weakness. It feels like losing something. So, people fill it. They explain why they disagree. They defend their position. They make sure the other person knows that their statement did not go unchallenged, and in doing so, they hand over something valuable. They reveal their position immediately. They show their hand before understanding the full situation. They react to the moment instead of the larger context. The Stoics practiced something different. They practiced the unspoken response. This does not mean staying silent forever. It does not mean never disagreeing. It means creating a gap, a deliberate pause between hearing something and responding to it. In that gap, several things happen. First, the initial emotional charge of disagreement settles. What felt urgent in the first second often feels far less urgent 5 seconds later. Second, the person who spoke is left with their statement sitting in the room, unchallenged for a moment. This creates something interesting. Sometimes, people hear their own words differently. When they are met with silence, rather than immediate pushback, the silence itself becomes a kind of mirror. Third, when you do eventually respond, if you choose to respond at all, your words carry the weight of consideration. Rather than reaction, people can sense the difference. A reactive response feels combative, even when it is not intended that way. A considered response, even when it disagrees completely, feels different. It feels like it came from somewhere stable. Epictetus taught that we should be slow to speak and slow to take offense, because both speech and offense, given too quickly, reveal a mind that has not yet mastered itself. The discipline of the unspoken response is not about hiding your thoughts. It is about choosing when those thoughts deserve to enter the room. What people project onto silence. Here is something fascinating about quiet presence. When someone says less than expected, other people fill in the gap with their own assumptions. This happens automatically, almost unconsciously. If someone is quiet during a discussion, the people around them begin to wonder what they are thinking. Are they disagreeing? Are they unimpressed? Are they simply taking everything in? Are they more knowledgeable than they are letting on? The mind does not like uncertainty, so it fills the silence with meaning. And often, that meaning gives the silent person more credit than they have actually earned through words alone. This is not manipulation. This is simply how human perception works. A person who speaks constantly leaves nothing to the imagination. Everything they think, everything they feel, is immediately visible and immediately available. There is no mystery. There is no gap for projection to occur. But a person who says less creates space, and in that space, others project depth, intelligence, consideration, sometimes more than is actually there. The Stoics were aware of this dynamic, though they would never have suggested using silence purely as a manipulation tactic. Their interest was different. They understood that a calm, observant presence naturally creates this effect as a byproduct of genuine internal stillness. It is not a performance. It is what happens naturally when someone is not driven by the need to fill every space with their own voice. The irony is that trying to seem mysterious by staying quiet on purpose rarely works the same way. People can sense performed silence. It feels strategic, calculated, slightly hollow but genuine quietness, the kind that comes from someone who is simply not driven by the compulsive need to be heard, creates a different kind of impression entirely. It feels grounded. It feels real. And because it is real, it carries weight that performance never could. The energy cost of constant expression. Every time you express something, an opinion, a reaction, a piece of information about yourself, you spend a small amount of energy. Most people never notice this because the cost of any single expression feels negligible. One comment, one reaction, one piece of information shared. It feels free, but across an entire day, an entire week, an entire life, these small expenditures add up to something significant. The Stoics paid close attention to where their energy went. Not just physical energy, but mental and emotional energy. The energy that goes into being seen, understood, agreed with, validated. A person who constantly shares their opinions, their reactions, their feelings about everything happening around them is in a constant state of output. An output, sustained without pause, eventually depletes something. It depletes the depth available for the moments that actually matter. Think about someone who reacts visibly to everything. Every minor inconvenience gets a comment. Every piece of news gets an opinion. Every interaction gets a reaction. By the time something genuinely significant happens, something that actually deserves their full presence and attention, they have already spent so much of themselves on things that did not matter, that they have less left to give to the thing that does. Quiet people, by contrast, often have more in reserve, not because they feel less, not because they think less, but because they are more selective about where their internal energy goes. They do not react to everything. They do not need to comment on everything. They do not need every thought to become spoken word. This selectivity is not coldness, it is conservation. And when something does deserve their full presence, a difficult conversation, an important decision, a moment that requires real depth, they have that depth available because they did not spend it on 100 smaller things throughout the day. The Stoics called this living according to what is essential. Not everything deserves a response. Not everything deserves a reaction. Not everything deserves your energy. And the less energy you spend on what does not matter, the more you have available for what does. The stillness that cannot be provoked. There is a specific kind of person who seems impossible to provoke, not because nothing affects them, not because they feel nothing, but because their reactions do not arrive on the timeline other people expect. Someone says something designed to get a reaction, a jab, a criticism, an attempt to unsettle. And the response that comes back is not what was expected. No defensiveness, no raised voice, no visible disturbance, just stillness. And that stillness is unsettling in a way that a reaction never could be, because when someone reacts the way you expect, you understand the interaction. You know where you stand. You can read the situation. But when someone responds with stillness instead, the interaction becomes unreadable. The person who tried to provoke is left without the information they were seeking. Did the comment land? Did it not matter? Is this person simply not affected, or are they processing it internally in a way that is not visible? This uncertainty creates a kind of power that loud reactions never could. The Stoics practiced this stillness deliberately, not as a performance designed to unsettle others, though it often has that effect, as a side benefit, but because they had genuinely trained themselves to create distance between provocation and reaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about this distance, the space between something happening and how you choose to respond to it is where your power lives. Most people collapse that space entirely. Provocation and reaction become almost simultaneous, but the more that space exists, the wider that gap between stimulus and response, the more stillness becomes available. And stillness, especially in moments where reaction is expected, becomes one of the most powerful things a person can offer. Not because it defeats the other person, but because it demonstrates something that very few people ever develop: the ability to remain completely yourself, regardless of what is happening around you. Presence without performance. There is a difference between presence and performance that most people never learn to distinguish. Performance is something you do. It requires effort, energy, awareness of audience. Presence simply is. It does not require an audience to exist. It does not change depending on who is in the room. A person who has built genuine presence behaves the same way whether they are in a room full of people or completely alone. Their stillness is not for anyone. Their calm is not a display. This consistency is what makes presence feel different from performance. People can sense, even if they cannot articulate it, when someone's calm only exists. When they are being watched, The moment the audience disappears, so does the composure. But genuine presence does not fluctuate based on observation. The Stoics aimed for exactly this kind of consistency. Their practices reflection, observation, the deliberate pause before reaction were not things they performed for others. They were internal disciplines practiced in private that simply became visible as a natural byproduct of how they moved through the world. This is an important distinction because performed quietness eventually fails. If someone is quiet only when it benefits them, quiet in meetings to seem thoughtful, but reactive and anxious in private, that inconsistency eventually becomes visible. People notice when calm is conditional, but when stillness comes from genuine internal work, when someone has actually trained themselves to create space between stimulus and reaction, to conserve their energy, to observe before speaking, that stillness exists everywhere. In the boardroom and at home, in public and in private, when being watched and when completely alone. And it is this consistency, more than any single moment of composure, that builds the kind of presence people feel without being able to fully explain. How quiet people change rooms. Watch what happens when a quiet person enters a room that has been dominated by loud voices. Often, almost nothing happens immediately. The loud conversation continues. The dynamics remain the same, but something subtle begins to shift. The quiet person observes. They do not immediately try to insert themselves into the existing dynamic, and in that observation, they begin to notice things that the people actively participating cannot see, because when you are speaking, you are not fully listening. When you are defending a position, you are not fully absorbing what is being said. The loud participants in any conversation are often the least aware of what is actually happening in the room, not because they lack intelligence, but because their attention is divided between listening and preparing their next contribution. The quiet person has no such division. Their attention is entirely available. And when they eventually speak, if they speak at all, what they say often reflects something that no one else in the room had noticed. This is not because they are smarter. It is because they were the only person actually paying full attention. Over time, in groups where this happens repeatedly, something interesting occurs. People begin to notice that this person sees things others miss. They begin to value the moments when this person does speak, because those moments are rare and consistently insightful. The room begins to change its relationship with this person's silence. Silence stops being interpreted as absence. It begins being interpreted as presence, a different kind of presence, one that is gathering information. The entire room is too busy to gather for itself. This is how quiet people change rooms, without ever raising their voice, not through dominance, through depth. The quiet confidence that cannot be faked. There is a kind of confidence that announces itself constantly. It needs to be seen, acknowledged, validated. It talks about achievements. It compares itself to others. It needs the room to recognize its value. And then there is another kind of confidence entirely. This kind does not announce itself. Because it does not need to. It is not seeking validation. Because its sense of worth does not depend on external recognition. This is the confidence the Stoics aimed to cultivate. Not the kind that needs to prove something to a room. The kind that simply exists, regardless of whether the room notices it at all. The interesting thing about this quiet confidence is that it is almost impossible to fake. Loud confidence can be performed. Anyone can walk into a room and act assured, speak boldly, project an image of certainty. But quiet confidence requires something that cannot be performed in the moment. It requires genuine internal stability, the kind that develops over time, through the practices we have discussed throughout this video. The deliberate pauses, the conservation of energy, the stillness in the face of provocation, the presence that exists with or without an audience. All of these things, practiced consistently, eventually produce something that cannot be replicated through performance alone. A person who has genuinely done this internal work carries themselves differently, not because they are trying to, but because they have changed at a level deeper than behavior, and other people sense this difference. Even when they cannot explain exactly what they are sensing, they sense the absence of need, the absence of the need to be seen, to be validated, to prove anything to anyone. And in a world full of people who are constantly performing confidants, the genuine absence of that performance becomes, paradoxically, the most confident thing in the room. The final message: walk into any room from now on and notice something. Notice who is speaking the most. Notice who is filling every silence, who needs to be heard, who cannot let a pause exist without rushing to end it. And then notice the other people, the ones who are listening, the ones who are observing, the ones whose silence does not feel like absence at all. You have a choice in every room you enter, in every conversation you have, in every moment that invites a reaction. You can fill the space, or you can become the space that everything else moves around. The Stoics understood that real presence was never about being the loudest voice in the room. It was about being the steadiest one, the one whose silence carried weight, the one whose words, when they finally came, mattered because they were rare, the one whose stillness could not be provoked, performed, or faked. This is not about becoming withdrawn. This is not about having nothing to say. It is about understanding that not everything needs to be said. Not everything needs a reaction. Not every silence needs to be filled. And the more you practice this, the more you create space between stimulus and response, between thought and expression, between provocation and reaction. The more you will notice something happening. People will begin to feel your presence differently, not because you are doing more, because you are doing less, and doing it with complete intention. The quieter you become, the more powerful your presence grows. This is not a paradox. This is simply something most people never discover. If this reached something in you, take a moment and watch one of the videos. On your screen right now, practice this stillness. Build that presence. Thank you for being part of Stoic Ascent.